The deafening alarm jerked Quinn Quentin from sleep, its shriek cutting through the sterile air of Starbase Omega. Red emergency lights bathed his small quarters in a sinister glow as he fumbled for his uniform, heart pounding. This wasn't a drill, not at 0300 hours. "Attention all personnel," the AI's voice announced with eerie calm. "Unknown vessel approaching. Defense positions. This is not a drill." Quinn pulled on his boots, mind racing. 6 months stationed on this remote outpost orbiting Proxima Centauri b, and this was the first real emergency. The Starbase, a joint research facility between humans and 3 alien species, had been peaceful until now. He rushed into the corridor where others were already moving with purpose. Lieutenant Ziv, a tall Vixarian with pale blue skin and 4 eyes, nodded as Quinn fell into step beside him. "Any intel?" Quinn asked, matching the alien's long strides. "Unidentified craft. Not matching any known signatures in our database," Ziv replied, his voice modulating through the translator embedded in Quinn's ear. "Commander Raxa ordered all research staff to secure the labs. Combat personnel to defensive positions." They reached the main operations center where the scene was controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed the approaching vessel sleek, black, and unlike any ship Quinn had seen before. Commander Raxa, a formidable Tarsian female with scaled skin and impressive height, stood at the central console. "Quentin, good. You're needed in Lab 7, she said without looking up. "Professor Ekos is requesting assistance with securing the neurological research materials." Quinn frowned. "Madam, with respect, I'm trained for defense. Shouldn't I? That's an order, Lieutenant," Raxa cut him off. "The research in Lab 7 is priority alpha. Move." Quinn changed direction, heading for the research wing. Lab 7 housed the controversial fear response studies collaborative research between humans and aliens trying to understand cross-species psychology. Professor Ekos, a brilliant Meridian scientist, had been making breakthroughs in understanding how different species processed fear. The research wing was eerily quiet compared to the operations center. Quinn's footsteps echoed as he approached Lab 7 and pressed his palm against the scanner. The door slid open with a soft hiss. "Professor Ekos," Quinn called, stepping inside. The lab was dimly lit, equipment humming softly. Tables lined with vials, neural scanners, and holographic brain models filled the space, but there was no sign of the professor. "Professor!" A noise from the back room drew Quinn's attention. He moved cautiously toward it, hand resting on his sidearm. The door to the containment chamber was ajar. "Professor Ekos, are you in there?" "Commander Raxa sent me to." The attack came swiftly. Something heavy struck Quinn from behind, sending him sprawling. He rolled, reaching for his weapon, but a foot pinned his wrist to the floor. Looking up, he found himself staring into the multifaceted eyes of Professor Ekos. But something was wrong. The Meridian's normally silver eyes were clouded black, and dark veins pulsed beneath his translucent skin. "Perfect timing, Lieutenant," Ekos said, his voice deeper than normal. "We needed a human subject." "What are you talking about?" Quinn struggled against the professor's surprising strength. "There's an emergency. We need to secure the—" "There is no emergency," Ekos interrupted. "The alarm was triggered remotely. A necessary deception." Quinn felt cold dread wash over him as 2 more figures emerged from the shadows, other researchers he recognized, both looking as altered as Ekos, with the same black eyes and dark veins. "What's happening to you?" Quinn asked, still fighting to free himself. Ekos tilted his head. "Evolution, Lieutenant. Clarity. Something your species might benefit from as well." They dragged Quinn into the containment chamber despite his struggles. The room was circular, with a chair at its center not unlike an interrogation setup, but with medical restraints and neural monitoring equipment attached. "This is insane," Quinn protested as they secured him to the chair. "Whatever's affecting you, we can help." "The medical bay can silence," ordered Dr. Nari, a human researcher Quinn had shared meals with just days ago. Her eyes were normal, but her expression was cold, calculating. "The procedure requires focus." Quinn's heart raced as they attached sensors to his temples and chest. "What procedure?" "Nari, this is illegal. You're violating every protocols," she scoffed. "Always hiding behind rules. This is beyond protocols, Quinn. This is about understanding the true nature of your species." Professor Ekos approached with a metal case, opening it to reveal a complex device Quinn didn't recognize. "Human fear responses are unique in the galaxy," the Meridian explained clinically. "Your species turns fear into something else, something potentially valuable." Quinn renewed his struggles against the restraints. "Whatever you're planning, it won't work. Security will notice I'm missing." "Security is dealing with the phantom ship alert," Nari said, checking readings on a monitor. "We have ample time." Ekos manipulated the device, which began to emit a soft blue glow. "For centuries, my people believed fear was merely a survival mechanism, a primitive response to danger. But your species has evolved something fascinating. You can transmute fear into pleasure, into excitement. The roller coaster effect, as you call it." Quinn felt his mouth go dry. "This is about the fear response research, not just research anymore," Ekos said. "Application. The collective requires results." "The collective? What collective?" Quinn demanded. Nari ignored his question, adjusting something on the device. "Calibrated for human physiology. Beginning sequence in 3, 2. "Wait," Quinn shouted. "You can't just." A fine mist sprayed from nozzles around the chair, enveloping Quinn in a colorless, odorless cloud. He held his breath instinctively, but Nari pressed a button that sent a sharp electric shock through his body. He gasped involuntarily, inhaling the gas. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Pure, primal terror flooded his system. His heartbeat thundered in his ears as horrific visions filled his mind, his body being torn apart, endless falling, drowning in darkness. Every fear he'd ever known magnified 1,000-fold. Quinn screamed, thrashing against the restraints as the fear gas did its work. His consciousness fractured into shards of horror, each one reflecting a different nightmare. He was dying. He was sure of it. His heart couldn't sustain this level of terror. Through the haze of fear, he dimly registered the aliens observing him, taking notes, adjusting readings. They were studying his response with clinical detachment. And then, something unexpected happened. As the terror reached its peak, Quinn's brain chemistry shifted. Endorphins flooded his system, a natural defense mechanism against the overwhelming fear. The terror began to transform, morphing into something else. Not quite pleasure, but exhilaration. It was like the rush of skydiving or the thrill of a near-miss accident, but magnified beyond reason. His screams changed in pitch. His body, still racked with tremors, responded differently. The gas dissipated gradually, leaving Quinn gasping and disoriented but alive. Sweat soaked his uniform as he struggled to process what had happened. "Fascinating," Ekos murmured, examining the readings. "The neural pathways actually reconfigured temporarily." The fear became something else entirely. Nari leaned over Quinn, studying his dilated pupils. "How do you feel, Lieutenant?" Quinn could barely form words, his throat raw from screaming. What did you do to me?" "We exposed you to compound X-17, a synthetic fear stimulant," she explained matter-of-factly. "It targets the amygdala directly, producing pure terror without any actual threat. "Why?" Quinn croaked. Ekos approached, his black eyes reflecting the dim light. "Because humans are unique in how you process fear. Other species simply experience it as a warning system. But your kind has evolved to sometimes enjoy it. Horror entertainment, extreme sports, dangerous games. You seek out controlled fear." Quinn's head pounded as the after effects of the gas lingered in his system. So this was, what? An experiment? Phase 1, Nari corrected. Your response was more dramatic than anticipated. The conversion from fear to euphoria was nearly complete. Despite his situation, Quinn found himself remembering the strange sensation the moment when the terror had transformed into something else. It had been horrible, yes, but also something he couldn't quite name. "Let me go," he demanded, pulling at the restraints. "Whatever you're doing, it's not worth destroying your careers over." Ekos made a sound that might have been laughter. "Careers? Lieutenant, you still don't understand. This goes far beyond academic research." The Meridian gestured, and the wall behind him shimmed, revealing a hidden compartment containing dozens of canisters, each bearing the same marking as the device they'd used on Quinn. "The collective has waited long enough," Ekos continued. "Your species has something we need: this ability to transmute fear. With it properly harvested and synthesized, we can evolve beyond our limitations." Quinn stared at the canisters, comprehension dawning. "You're weaponizing it, refining it," Nari corrected. "The gas that affected you is a crude prototype. With further testing, we can isolate the specific compounds that trigger the fear-to-pleasure conversion in humans." "And then what?" Quinn demanded. "Then we introduce it to select populations," Ekos said calmly. "Beginning with problem worlds where resistance to the collective is strongest." Quinn felt sick. "You're talking about mind control, chemical warfare." "We're talking about advancement," Nari countered. "Imagine societies free from debilitating fear, able to face challenges with excitement instead of terror." "Not their choice, though, is it?" Quinn shot back. "You're forcing it on them." Ekos moved to a console, inputting commands. "We need more data." The first test was promising, but insufficient. Quinn realized with horror what was coming. "No, don't increase concentration by 30%, Ekos instructed. "Let's see how far the human mind can go before breaking." The nozzles hissed again, releasing a denser cloud of the fear gas. Quinn tried to hold his breath, but another shock forced him to inhale. This time, the terror was beyond anything he could have imagined: cosmic horror, existential dread. Every primal fear encoded in human DNA activated at once. He couldn't scream anymore. His voice was gone. His body convulsed as his mind tried to process the unprocessable. Death would be a mercy compared to this endless nightmare, and yet, as before, something shifted. His brain, desperate for survival, began converting the fear signals. Endorphins, dopamine, and other chemicals flooded his system in quantities that would never occur naturally. The terror remained, but alongside it grew a sensation of euphoria so intense it was almost spiritual. Quinn's consciousness expanded in ways he couldn't comprehend. For a moment, he existed in two states simultaneously: unimaginable fear and transcendent bliss. When the gas cleared this time, he was barely conscious, trembling uncontrollably, tears streaming down his face. But his lips were curled in what might have been a smile. "Perfect," Ekos said, reviewing the data. "The conversion was nearly complete that time. His brain is adapting to the stimulus." Nari checked Quinn's vitals. "Heart rate elevated but stabilizing. Brain activity is unusual. I've never seen patterns like this." Quinn's perception was fragmented, reality breaking apart and reassembling incorrectly. But through the haze he formed words. More. The researchers exchanged glances. "What did you say?" Nari asked, leaning closer. Quinn's eyes, unfocused and dilated, found hers. "More, give me, more." Ekos made a note. As theorized, the addiction response is immediate and powerful. His brain is already craving the chemical conversion. "This exceeds our projections," one of the other researchers said. "The collective will be pleased." Through his fractured consciousness, Quinn recognized the danger. Whatever they had done to him was changing him, making him want something that should be terrifying. He fought against the artificial craving, trying to clear his mind. "You can't. Use this," he managed, his voice hoarse. "People will fight back. People always do," Nari said dismissively. "Until they don't. That's the beauty of Compound X-17. After enough exposure, subjects beg for more, just as you're doing now." Quinn forced himself to focus, fighting through the lingering effects. "I'm not begging. I'm figuring you out." A slight frown crossed Nari's face. "His resistance is stronger than expected." Ekos adjusted something on his console. "Increase neural suppression. We can't have him fighting the effects." A new sensation washed over Quinn, a heaviness in his thoughts, making it difficult to concentrate. They were trying to break down his mental defenses to make him more susceptible. In that moment, Quinn made a desperate decision. Instead of fighting the effects of the gas, he would lean into them, pretend to be more affected than he was. It was his only chance. "Please," he whispered, allowing his eyes to unfocus again. "Need more, the feeling. Nothing like it." The researchers exchanged satisfied glances. "Typical human response," Ekos noted. "They always want more of what harms them." Nari checked the restraints. "We should move to Phase 3. The collective representatives will be expecting preliminary results within 12 hours. As they prepared for the next test, Quinn surreptitiously tested his restraints. The arm cuff on his right side had loosened slightly during his convulsions. If he could work it free while they were distracted. "Prepare the cerebral scanner," Ekos instructed another researcher. "We need to map exactly which neural pathways are activating during the conversion process." While they busied themselves with the equipment, Quinn worked his right hand gradually through the loosened restraint, careful not to make any obvious movements. His fingers tingled with returning circulation as he freed them. Nari approached with a neural net, a mesh of fine sensors designed to be placed directly on his scalp. "Hold still," she instructed. Not realizing he was now partially free, Quinn maintained his drugged expression. "Will this?" "Give me more," he slurred, playing into their expectations. "Soon," she promised with clinical detachment. "We need to understand exactly how your brain processes the fear first." As she leaned in to apply the neural net, Quinn made his move. His free hand shot up, grabbing her wrist and yanking her off balance. In the same motion, he slammed his forehead into hers, stunning her. Chaos erupted in the lab. Quinn used Nari's access card, still clipped to her coat, to release his other restraints. The aliens rushed toward him, but Quinn was a trained combat officer. Even weakened by the gas, his reflexes were sharp. He threw Nari into Ekos, sending both sprawling, then lunged for the nearest emergency station. Every lab on the Starbase had one containing emergency breathers, medical supplies, and most importantly, a security alert. Quinn smashed the glass panel and hit the red button before the other researchers could stop him. Instantly, alarms blared throughout the facility, real ones this time, not the fake alert they had created. "Security breach, Lab 7, announced the AI system. "Security teams responding." "You fool," Ekos snarled, his composure finally breaking. "You have no idea what you're interfering with." Quinn grabbed an emergency breather from the station, strapping it over his face. "I know exactly what I'm interfering with," he said, his voice muffled but clear. "An illegal weapons program disguised as research." He backed toward the lab's exit, keeping his eyes on the researchers. Nari was recovering, blood trickling from where their heads had collided. "The collective has waited centuries for this breakthrough," she said, her clinical tone replaced with anger. "We're so close to understanding how to harness fear itself." "Not through me," Quinn replied. The door behind him slid open, and security personnel rushed in a mix of human and alien officers with weapons drawn. Lieutenant Ziv was among them, his 4 eyes taking in the scene quickly. "Lieutenant Quentin," Ziv acknowledged. "Situation." Quinn kept the breather on, wary of more gas. "These researchers are conducting illegal experiments. They've developed some kind of fear-inducing compound and tested it on me without consent. They're working for something called the Collective." The security team moved efficiently, securing the researchers. Ekos struggled briefly, but was quickly subdued. "The fear gas is in those canisters." Quinn indicated the hidden compartment. "Careful, it's potent and apparently addictive." Ziv ordered 2 officers to secure the canisters using hazmat protocols. "Medical team is en route for you, Lieutenant." Quinn nodded gratefully, the adrenaline that had carried him through the escape beginning to fade. His body ached, and his mind still felt fractured from the gas's effects. As the medical team arrived and guided him to a stretcher, Quinn caught sight of Commander Raxa entering the lab, her expression grim as she surveyed the scene. "Commander," Quinn called. "They mentioned others' representatives coming for results. There might be more infiltrators on the station." Raxa nodded sharply. "Already on it, Lieutenant. We've been tracking unusual communications for days. Your emergency signal confirmed our suspicions." Quinn allowed himself to be placed on the stretcher, relief washing over him. But as they wheeled him toward the medical bay, an unsettling thought surfaced. Part of him, some deep, altered part, still craved the sensation the gas had produced. That terrified him more than the gas itself ever could. In the medical bay, Dr. Everly, the station's chief physician, personally oversaw Quinn's treatment. Scans revealed the gas had caused temporary changes to his brain chemistry, but nothing permanent, at least, nothing their instruments could detect. "You're lucky, Lieutenant," Everly said, reviewing the results. "Preliminary analysis of that compound suggests it could have caused permanent psychological damage with prolonged exposure." Quinn lay back on the medical bed, and Roman 4 dripping detoxifying agents into his system. They said it was designed to convert fear into something else, something addictive. Everly nodded grimly. "We've seen the initial test results they were recording, fascinating and disturbing in equal measure. They were essentially weaponizing the human brain's own chemistry against itself." "Any idea who this collective is?" Quinn asked. "Security is investigating." "Apparently, it's some kind of multi-species organization been around for centuries, according to the files we've recovered. They've been infiltrating research outposts across known space." Quinn closed his eyes, feeling the medication working through his system, clearing the last traces of the fear gas. "And Nari, the others, in custody." "The investigation is ongoing, but early indications suggest Professor Ekos has been replacing staff with collective operatives for months." Over the next few days, Quinn remained under observation in the medical bay. The physical effects of the gas faded quickly, but the psychological impact lingered. He found himself waking from nightmares, drenched in sweat yet disturbingly, with a sense of exhilaration rather than fear. Commander Raxa visited on the 3rd day, her tall frame making the medical bay seem smaller. "The security sweep is complete," she informed him. "We've identified 7 collective agents on the station, including 3 in key research positions. All have been detained." Quinn sat up in his bed. "And the fear gas, secured and under analysis by our most trusted scientists. Preliminary findings suggest they were very close to perfecting it." Raxa's expression was solemn. "You exposed their operation just in time, Lieutenant. What would have happened if they'd succeeded?" Raxa's scales shifted the Tarsian equivalent of a troubled frown. "Based on their documentation, they plan to introduce the compound into the ventilation systems of key diplomatic centers. Imagine peace negotiations where fear becomes excitement, where caution transforms into recklessness." Quinn shuddered at the thought. They could have destabilized the entire alliance, precisely, which is why your actions, while unorthodox, have earned you a commendation. Despite the praise, Quinn felt uneasy. "Commander, there's something I haven't told the medical team." Raxa waited silently. "Part of me wanted more of the gas, still does sometimes." The admission was difficult. "They said it was addictive after just one exposure. What if that effect doesn't go away?" Raxa considered this. Dr. Everly mentioned this possibility. "That's why your recovery program includes neurological recalibration sessions." "Will they work?" "The doctor believes so. The craving isn't physical, not like conventional drug addiction. It's more like your brain remembering a pathway it discovered. The therapy helps establish new pathways." Quinn nodded, somewhat relieved. "And the collective? This cell has been neutralized, but they're clearly widespread. Alliance intelligence has been notified. This is bigger than our station now." A week later, Quinn was cleared to return to light duties. The neurological recalibration had helped diminish the lingering cravings, though occasional dreams still brought back echoes of that strange fear euphoria. He was assigned to assist with cataloging the research materials recovered from Lab 7, a task that required someone familiar with what had happened, but under strict supervision to prevent any temptation. Working alongside Alliance intelligence analysts, Quinn helped piece together the extent of the collective's plans. The fear gas was just one of several chemical agents they were developing, all designed to manipulate emotional responses in various species. "It's psychological terraforming," explained Agent Trell, a human intelligence officer. "They want to reshape how sentient beings process emotions, starting with fear, but eventually targeting all primary emotional responses." Quinn carefully labeled a secure data crystal containing research notes. "To what end? Control, ultimately. A population that doesn't fear oppression is easier to subjugate, and if you can make them actually crave what should frighten them." Trell let the implication hang. As they worked, Quinn noticed a sealed container marked with high security warnings. "What's in there?" Trell's expression turned grim. "The last remaining sample of the refined compound. The rest was destroyed per Alliance protocols." Quinn felt a disturbing pull toward the container, a whisper in his mind suggesting how easy it would be to open it, to experience that sensation one more time. He took a deliberate step back. Should that even be here? It's being transported to Alliance headquarters tomorrow. They need one sample for developing countermeasures. That night, Quinn couldn't sleep. The knowledge that a sample of the fear gas was still on the station gnawed at him, not because he feared it, but because part of him wanted it. The recalibration therapy had reduced the cravings, but not eliminated them entirely. Around 0200 hours, he gave up on sleep and decided to walk the station's quiet corridors. Exercise helped clear his mind, the doctors had said. His wandering brought him, perhaps inevitably, to the secured laboratory where the sample was being kept. 2 guards stood outside, standard procedure for high-value materials. "Lieutenant, One nodded in recognition. Bit late for a stroll, Quinn forced a smile. Can't sleep. Thought walking might help. Understandable after what you went through, the guard said sympathetically. Whole stations talking about it. You really asked for more of that stuff. The question hit Quinn like a physical blow. It affects your mind, makes you want it. The guard looked uncomfortable. Sorry, sir. Didn't mean to bring up bad memories. Quinn nodded and continued walking, but the encounter left him shaken. Was that how people saw him now? The officer who begged for more fear gas, the transport carrying the last sample left the next morning. Quinn watched from the observation deck as the small, heavily guarded shuttle departed for Alliance headquarters. He should have felt relief, but instead experienced a complex mixture of loss and liberation. Commander Raxa found him still there an hour later. The sample is safely away, she said, moving to stand beside him. One less concern for our station. Quinn nodded. Good. Raxa studied him with her keen eyes. Dr. Everly reports your recovery is progressing well. The neurological patterns are stabilizing. The cravings are fading, Quinn confirmed. But I don't think they'll ever completely disappear. It's like the gas revealed something that was always there, the dark part of human psychology that can find pleasure in fear. Perhaps, Raxa acknowledged. But recognizing that potential is its own kind of strength. The collective sought to exploit it without consent. You're confronting it consciously. Quinn turned from the viewport. What happens now, for the station? Enhanced security, more thorough background checks. For you. Raxa's expression softened slightly. That depends. Alliance intelligence was impressed with your handling of the situation. They've expressed interest in recruiting you. For what? The collective investigation. Your first-hand experience with their methods makes you valuable. Plus, you've proven resistant to their influence, at least resistant enough to break free. Quinn considered this. Using his experience to help stop the collective had a certain symmetry to it, and perhaps continuing to face the fear directly was better than trying to forget it. I'd need to complete the full treatment course first, he said. Raxa nodded. Of course. Take the time you need. The offer stands when you're ready. 3 months later, Quinn stood before the entrance to Alliance Intelligence Headquarters on Earth. His recovery had been declared complete 2 weeks prior, though both he and his doctors acknowledged that certain neural pathways had been permanently altered. He would always carry the memory of that strange fear euphoria, but he had learned to manage it. Agent Trell met him in the lobby. Welcome to the team, Lieutenant Quentin. Or should I say, Agent Quentin now? Quinn shook the offered hand. Still getting used to the title. You'll have time. First assignment is largely analytical, helping our scientists understand the psychological components of the fear gas. We've made progress on a countermeasure. As they walked through the secure facility, Trell briefed him on developments. The collective had gone to ground after their exposure on Starbase Omega, but intelligence suggested they were regrouping. Their interest in emotion-altering compounds continued. We believe they've moved their primary research facility to the Deneb sector, Trell explained. Unaligned territory, minimal oversight. Are they still working on the fear gas? Quinn asked, among other things. Our latest intelligence suggests they've begun experiments on other emotional responses, joy, anger, grief. The fear compound was just the beginning. They reached a high-security laboratory where scientists in protective gear worked with sealed equipment. Through a viewport, Quinn could see testing chambers not unlike the one he had been trapped in. We're reverse engineering their work, Trell explained. Not to weaponize it, but to defend against it. Understanding how these compounds affect neural pathways is the first step to developing blockers. A scientist approached the viewport, recognizing Quinn. Lieutenant Quentin, your neurological scans have been invaluable to our research. The way your brain processed the fear stimulus gives us insight we couldn't have gained otherwise. Quinn nodded, uncomfortable with the reminder but understanding the importance. Glad something good came from it. More than you know, the scientist assured him. We've developed a neural inhibitor that can prevent the fear-to-pleasure conversion. Early tests are promising. As they continued the tour, Quinn was introduced to the team he would be working with, a mix of scientists, intelligence analysts, and field operatives, all focused on the collective threat. You'll be our expert on their psychological tactics, Trell explained. Your experience gives you insight none of us have. Later, in his new quarters, Quinn reviewed the files on his assigned cases. The collective had been operating longer than anyone had realized, centuries of subtle influence across multiple worlds. Their ultimate goal remained unclear, but their methods were becoming more sophisticated. A message from Dr. Everly appeared on his screen, a follow-up on his condition. The doctor had been monitoring him remotely since he left the station. Neural pathways stable, the report noted. Recurring dreams diminished in frequency. Subject demonstrates resilience to memory triggers. Quinn closed the file, considering how far he had come. From victim to investigator, from test subject to expert, the experience that should have broken him had instead redirected him. He opened his personal log and recorded an entry. Day 1 at Alliance Intelligence. The fear gas changed me, there's no denying that. The neural pathways it created still exist, dormant but present. Sometimes I still wake up remembering that moment when terror became something else. But now I understand what the collective doesn't. True strength isn't in exploiting fear, but in facing it consciously. They wanted to create addiction. Instead, they created resistance. I breathed their fear and asked for more, not because I was conquered, but because in that moment, I learned how to fight back. Now, I'll use that knowledge to stop them from doing this to anyone else. Quinn closed the log and prepared for his first official briefing. The collective was still out there, still developing their emotional weapons. But now the Alliance was ready, with someone who understood their methods from the inside. The fear remained a part of him, but now it was a tool, not a weakness. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all.